guys, here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Clubmobile.
Welcome back, everybody.
A little trigger warning for this episode, I think, is in order. We're going to be talking about I think it's a heavy subject. And the reason we're doing this is because Gabby and I have discussed amongst ourselves that war wasn't all USO dances and women with lovely hair. There was some really rough stuff going on, and we, as our mission, want to bring unknown stories into the light and educate people. And that does sometimes mean laying on some heavy information.
Correct. It goes back to war is hell.
War is hell, yeah. If you feel uncomfortable, we are not going to be upset if you switch off. We thank you for listening in the first place. Today, we're going to be talking about the 3-Minute Men. And if you are not familiar, these are the men that would visit the legalized brothels during the war in Hawaii. It's a very heavy subject for us to take on, I think.
But I think it's important because this is something that was happening before the war started. So pre-Pearl Harbor, these girls, they were kind of marketed. I don't even want to marketed, but they were kind of marketed as
they were marketed as relief. They were marketed as a way to relieve your stress. Waitresses. Yeah.
Or like hotel. I had the word here somewhere. Oh, a dance hall hostess. That's
stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah.
A hostess.
Yep.
And
that was the main descriptor of it, I believe.
And it was to keep the unassuming public from First of all, it was to keep the unassuming public from calling the police and having these brothels shut down.
Pretty much, these were essentially legalized brothels. The law looked the other way. And the reason they were legalized by the military police, not the civilian police, was so the quote-unquote sex-starved soldiers leaving the Pacific and going through Hawaii to get to the Pacific Theater, that they would not put themselves upon the rich, wealthy daughters of, aristocratic families, of richer families in the area.
And it was also a way, yes, was it a way to control, the health of the women that these men were sleeping with? They legalized brothels, right? So there's rules in place. They couldn't have any outside boyfriends. There was a whole host of rules. They couldn't live outside the brothel. They couldn't have boyfriends outside the brothel. So essentially, the brothel and I would say the head mistress had full control over these women, and it became a way for the military to control the VD problem.
Yes. Yeah. So while, yes, the brothels were around before Pearl Harbor and before America joined the war, it was post-Pearl Harbor, so directly after Pearl Harbor had happened, that the elite in Hawaii believed that they needed prostitutes to provide a buffer for male soldiers passing through. And like I said, without these sex workers, it was feared that these men would go after the upper-class white daughters of the island. The terms of employment were essentially that everyone look the other way.
Right.
So that they knew it was happening, but they would not call the police about it because they had legalized it.
Right.
The women were expected to carry on their job without complaint. They were getting paid. The men were getting what they wanted, as were the upper class families of Hawaii.
Right.
Also getting what they wanted. Like you said, the military took it as a way to control the VD problem because in World War I, venereal disease had killed more soldiers than enemy bullets.
That's a wild concept to think about.
Isn't that crazy?
That more men died from venereal disease than from actual enemy fight.
They would use these women to essentially curb the risk of that happening again, of that repeating. A lot of the women that worked in these brothels were white, they were American, and they had originally worked and operated out of brothels in San Francisco.
Essentially what happens is they come to Hawaii because they've been asked to leave San Francisco.
Yeah.
Something happened, they broke the
Yeah.
rules, and now you are no longer welcome in San Francisco.
There was that, but there was also scouts
Right.
looking for these women. And
Like
I,
talent scouts. Could you
yeah, I wrote something here
go on?
where I said that the women were recruited, and I put recruited as a nice word to use. These women were essentially sex trafficked to Hawaii. Them already working as prostitutes and sex workers does not negate the fact that they were bought and they were trafficked.
Correct.
While I do not know if any were kidnapped under this scouting, I know that the
Right.
term we would use now would not be they were recruited,
Would be
they were
sex
sex
trafficked.
trafficked. They were sex trafficked to Hawaii.
These women became like,
Yeah.
where do you get to a point where you become,
I think we see this a lot as well. It's on the back of the Great Depression.
it is.
You need to find a way to earn money for your
It
parents.
is.
Your
Yeah.
parents can't work anymore, or they lost their job. The money's run out. The women themselves may have had children that they could not provide for any other way post the Depression. A lot of them did not have a great education.
No.
So it's things like that, no qualifications in order to get a good job and no way to better themselves by going back to school in a way that you and I would do now.
Right. Really was to sleep with people for money.
When they were recruited, scouted in San Francisco, they
Mm.
worked for a madam. This was the person that essentially ran the brothel. These women were paid between 500 and 1,000 US dollars per woman. And like you said at the beginning, the women were registered as entertainers.
Right.
Of course, on their way out, they're not labeled as prostitute, sex worker, that kind of a thing. They were given pretty harsh rules once they arrived. They could only live at the brothel and nowhere else on the island. They could not be seen at tourist locations or stay in tourist hotels. They could not visit beaches or restaurants. Upon arrival, they were taken to the police station, fingerprinted and photographed, and then they were taken to a brothel on a place called Hotel Street. Essentially the red light district.
Yeah. It's like
The
it's very much like for anybody who's seen the movie Moulin Rouge. Satine.
Yes, very
Satine
much like that.
is their top, right? She's the top
Yeah.
top
Mm,
diamond at the
yeah.
Moulin Rouge.
Mhm.
And they basically have to market her to sleep with.
Yeah. And it's very much like in Miss Saigon. Miss Saigon is, of course,
Yes.
the Vietnam War. At the very beginning, you see Kim join as a waitress. She works in a bar. And the first song movie in my mind is about how they're playing other memories while they are sleeping with a soldier.
Right.
But it's a great musical. And I think it relates very much to this story also.
Yeah, it does.
So, Hotel Street was approximately a 5 block area on the island of Honolulu. There was restaurants, souvenir stands, tattoo parlors. I don't believe the brothels were disguised amongst any of these things. They were just there.
I wouldn't imagine because at that time it's known that they exist. So
Right, yeah.
you want soldiers to be able to find them, right? You
Yeah.
want them to be easily recognizable, but well maintained enough that they don't become an eyesore to the general public.
Yeah. And so that they don't look gross. They don't look like, oh, I'm going to catch something by going into
Right.
this specific establishment.
Right. Right.
More than 30,000 people a day would pass through Hotel Street, not necessarily to visit these
Mhm.
brothels. 250,000 men visited the brothels on Hotel Street each month, and these men were going home to the States via Hawaii, or they were going to the Pacific Theater
Right.
via Hawaii. They would pay $3 for 3 minutes with a woman, and it was a $9 million per year business. They made a lot of money.
9 million in wartime was enough to set you
Insane
up
anyway.
for multiple lifetimes.
But yeah, not now, Jesus.
I mean, and you figure $3 for 3 minutes, right?
$1 a minute.
$1 a minute. What are you doing in 3 minutes?
Oh, I don't want to know. Like, I just don't.
So they're paying for more than 3 minutes. They're going to pay for maybe 6 minutes, right? So they pay $6. They pay for 10
Oh,
minutes. They're going to pay for
I
20 minutes,
see.
which is where I
Yeah.
think this industry kind of used its brain and said, who's getting anything done in 3 minutes?
A lot of these men were so sex starved,
They
or
were
it was
they
their
were so
first sexual
sex they were so
experience.
sex deprived and touch starved that
Yeah.
maybe three
That
minutes was
it,
enough for them.
yeah.
But then you got to think about maybe the men who were leaving, right? And they wanted like, the men who
The
were on their
last
way out and
hurrah.
like, I want the last hurrah. Those are the guys that
Yeah.
are paying for 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The 3 minutes was probably very approximate for a number of men, but also there was a lot of men
I
on
think it
their
was
way
standard also.
out, right? Standard.
Yeah.
That was the industry standard. Three minutes.
Three
$3 for
minutes.
3 minutes, $1 a minute. But if you're on your
Yeah.
way out and you want the big last hurrah, I think you're gonna
See,
shell out the bucks for that, I think.
the only
There's
reason I
nobody we can
disagree,
ask.
right? The only reason I disagree with that is because these women would see up to 100 men a day, and the brothels were only open from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Oh, they weren't open at night.
Nope. They were
They
open
were
according to the curfew that the military police had set, and
okay,
women
okay.
women saw up to 100 men per day 3 weeks out of the month. The only week that they could take off was the week that they were menstruating.
Well, obviously that makes sense.
So I think the 3 minutes was standard because literally, excuse the pun, one in, one out.
I guess, yeah,
Yeah,
that
horrific.
makes a good point.
There were 15 brothels across Hotel Street and 250 prostitutes operated
Wow.
within them. Men would be lining up around the block, and one common type of work for the $3 for 3 minutes was known as the bullpen. This is why I wanted to add a trigger warning at the beginning because this is gross. A woman we're going to talk about later on in the episode, Jean O'Hara, created this method. A bullpen consisted of 3 rooms. In one room, a woman was with a man for the 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
In another next door, the next man was waiting and getting undressed. And the third room was for the man that had just been with the woman to dress himself and leave.
Jesus Christ.
So the 3 minutes was standard. I don't believe they got any more time purely based on the fact that they had
Mm.
5 hours and sometimes over 100 men to see. And their only break was that week where they were on their period.
So 60 minutes to an hour
Yep.
divided by three,
Yep. 3 minutes.
20 men an hour.
20 men an hour. And
And
they
they
went
were
from
they
the
were open
opening to
for 5 hours a
5
day.
hours, 100 men.
Times five, it's 100 men.
Yep. Isn't that insane?
I don't even like 100 men. I don't even think I like 50 men enough to give them a second glance.
This system created a relentless flow of men, and of course, the women could not keep up this pace for very long.
I mean,
Obviously,
God.
of course, they couldn't. A few only lasted a few months before requesting time off and essentially going AWOL and sailing back to the US.
Gosh.
Others would numb themselves with morphine. They were not allowed to drink alcohol or take recreational drugs, but the morphine was provided for them through the madams of the brothel who would ask a doctor for it. And that seemed to have been allowed. I don't think they were okay with it, but it was allowed. But they were not allowed to drink alcohol or take any
I'm
drugs.
pretty sure cigarettes were the limit there.
Cigarettes were the limit, I believe,
Yeah,
because
but
everyone smoked back then,
everyone
didn't they?
smoked back then.
Yeah.
I mean, and all of that, right? They're doing all of this. They're
Yeah.
making $3 for every man.
You
The
would think
madam is
they were making the
keeping
$3 of
$1
every $3.
for every three that they earn. So
Mm-hmm.
now they're taking home $2 a man
$2 a dude. Yep.
before, let's say, taxes and fees,
Yep.
right? Room and board, laundry, maids to keep the brothel clean, and weekly VD checks, right? So weekly
I do agree
STI
with that
checking.
last one.
I do agree with the
that
last one. I do agree with the last one.
Absolutely.
So they also pay taxes on their income, which was 30 to 40,000 a year in taxes. Because now remember, this is legal. So there's taxes. This is not under the table.
This is not under the
legal.
table. Yep.
Even with all of that money coming into them and X amount of it just in one hand out the other, these women made approximately 150,000 per year in comparison to the women that were working in factories doing honest work. But I hate to say honest work, but it was honest work, making $2,000 to $3,000 per year.
You can see why a lot of women turned to sex work in
the
such
money
a
was
time.
good. The money was
The
good,
money was
but the
good.
morality of it was so low.
No, of course. So I can absolutely see why when you're at the bottom of the barrel post Great Depression, you may not have the correct qualifications to get a high earning job.
Right.
You may be panicking and you may turn to sex work in order to feed yourself and to feed everyone. And also the brothels provided a roof over a lot of these women's heads. A lot of them may have been homeless.
It did. It kept them off the streets. So I would imagine that the city of Hawaii itself would see this as a way to keep homelessness at bay. It kept a lot of homeless women and beggars off the street. So essentially they're killing two birds with one stone, right? They're raking in the taxes from this. They're making money. The MPs have it under control and they're keeping the homelessness at bay. It's not as cut and dry as, yes, she was a prostitute. Yes, she was a sex worker. It's not as cut and dry. There's a lot of moving pieces to this because the country is at war. We're on the heels of the Depression and literally anything to boost the economy. Yeah,
literally. And it helped the islands. It helped
that, especially it helped the economy of the islands.
Yeah, especially after repairing the destruction of Pearl Harbor in the December.
Yes.
You would, it's hard to say I understand, but I understand. And you also have to remember that this was not okayed by the civilian police. This was okayed by the military police because martial law was in place. So the military police were in control of what was going on.
Right.
The civilian police, while there, were assisting them, were not the be all and end all of the laws.
Yeah, they were basically routine traffic stops.
Pretty much. Whereas the military police were there for the
help, somebody stole my purse. That type of thing. Where the civilian police, Yeah.
So in 1942, the women went on strike demanding they be able to live wherever they wanted and go wherever they wanted despite their occupation. I had a question about this bit. How would you know?
They've been photographed. They've been photographed, right?
No, I know. But if the police weren't there and you were just a woman going on the beach on a Hawaiian island, would she have to wear like a sign above her head saying, I work at this brothel? How would people know? I mean, genuinely, if you look at someone, you're not going to know their job.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say the military police benefited from this. From the $3, right?
Without a doubt they did.
And a lot of these men used these women to their advantage
and for their pleasure.
And a lot of times there was the instance of maybe one such military police officer or a high-ranking officer, right? A colonel or somebody is attracted to one of these workers. And he says to the madam, for X amount of dollars, I'd like to take her golfing, or I'd like to take her, to the beach for the day. So now it has to be her face is known. Oh, she's supposed to be out with Colonel so-and-so.
Yeah, maybe.
I really do think the photography, when they became part of Hotel Street and the fingerprinting,
that would have been why.
Then again, they're not high society women, so they're also maybe not dressed as well.
That's true. They're not dressed appropriately.
So it's easy to kind of flag them down.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think that they were walking around with a sign on their head.
Like, hey, I shouldn't be here because I work on this street. During their strike in August of 42, they were asking for basic constitutional rights and to be treated as equals while on the island. They wanted to live a free life despite their job, and I completely agree with them. Their job should not have mattered. It doesn't matter that they were doing what they were doing. Why were they looked down upon as dirty and uncouth when the men themselves were going to visit them? The women were looked down upon and weren't
Right.
allowed to leave the brothel or be seen. But the men were fine to roam around freely despite visiting
And how many of those
a
men do
brothel.
you fathom were married?
Oh God, a strong percentage.
Oh, yes. But they
Absolutely.
weren't ever looked down upon.
No. And the locals agreed with their strike, and said keep them around, give in to their demands because they're needed. They didn't mean it in a way of they're needed for, their safety, they're needed for the men. No, they were needed so that the men wouldn't touch their daughters. They were needed for the economy.
Right.
They were needed to pay taxes.
Yeah.
They weren't needed for valid reasons. They were needed because it made everyone else safer. The women went on strike for 3 weeks and a compromise was reached. The demands were given into, but they had to keep their business at their assigned brothel. They could not go out on the street
Well,
and say and approach a
essentially
soldier.
that's like saying, oh, you're an accountant, right? Or, you work on Wall Street and you trade. You're not
Yeah,
going to do that,
not going to do that for anyone else, are
you're
you?
not going to do that, let's just say hypothetically, in your pajamas at a Starbucks, you're going to do that in your
You
office.
do it at your
So
assigned
it's going
business.
to work every day. It's essentially
Yeah,
getting up and going to work every day and then coming
yeah.
home.
So the women's demands were given into, which I was dumbfounded by when I read that. I was like,
Yeah,
really?
I didn't think they would have gotten that at first.
Brothels did eventually close in September of 1944. Martial law was lifted in the face of another potential attack on Hawaii. It wasn't going to happen again. The
No,
threat of attack became remote, and that meant the civilian police were once again poised to take back control of the island. So the scale shifted. The civilian
correct.
police were then allowed to do the big illegal solving, and the military police were once again lower on the scale. The first order of business by the civilian police was that the sex workers were no longer allowed to live in residential neighborhoods or anywhere outside of their assigned brothel. They had to move back, keep them hidden
Mm.
again. And then again, I ask, how would anyone know if
Well,
they
now
have
these
bought
girls have been out.
property?
Now these girls have been out and about.
Yeah, if they have earned enough money to buy property and to live in it and keep up with it,
Yeah.
you're not going to know that this woman is working out of a brothel. You're not going to know that this woman is a sex worker. You're just not.
No.
It was sort of like they said, okay, you've had your fun, now go back where no one can see you, because now our guys aren't taking advantage of this
Correct.
legalization. Your guys might
Correct.
have been, ours aren't, because we're
Right.
clean. No. The governor of Hawaii, Ingram M. Steinbach, saw the elimination of Hotel Street as a way to reassert civilian control after the military had protected the brothels and the women throughout the war years. It's really bad, isn't it?
It is.
The military protected them because they wanted, I guess, in such a twisted way, they wanted things to happen safely.
Right.
They wanted
Which
to lessen
in
the
a way,
risk
you
of.
can't blame them for that. You
No,
need your
I
soldiers at
agree.
top performance, right? You don't need them
They
sick.
they wanted to eliminate or lessen the risk of sexual assaults and rapes,
That as well.
which I understand also, but for the civilian police to then say they don't deserve to be protected because of the job that they have done,
After the
I think is
civilians were
disgusting.
so in their corner for such a long time,
Right? But the
it's
civilians were in their corner for a long time because it stopped these men
Mhm.
approaching their young daughters on the street and being so sexually depraved that they would take
Mhm.
their child. I see where they're coming from in that sense.
Yeah.
But to then turn around and not protect these women just because they're promiscuous, I think is gross.
Yeah.
And then in September of 44, September 22nd, the Hotel Street brothels were closed. All of them were closed and ceased to exist on close of business that day at 2 p.m. So they were active for a number of years. And then once the threat of another attack was no longer happening, these women were then just sort of left. I don't know if they were thrown out of Hawaii. I don't know. It kind of stops there. You're never given any specifics.
Right.
And I hate to think what happened to these women.
But then again, why would anybody track the history of wartime sex workers?
Yeah, I would.
We would, right?
That's
we
the thing
would.
about me and you. We would have.
We would have.
And
We
made
so
sure
would
that they
have.
were safe and
yeah,
they lived a happy life after it. We mentioned a woman up above. Her name's Jean O'Hara,
the creator of the Bullpen.
Creator of the Bullpen. I don't think there's anything to be happy about, to be honest. What an odd thing to think up. What a strange.
What an odd way to be like, hey, it's like musical
things.
It's like musical chairs for sex.
Yeah, it streamlined the whole
when
system.
The music stops, you should be in the room with the man who's got his pants off.
Women in STEM, truly. So Jean O'Hara was born in Chicago in 1913 and was the only child of, they're very specific in her profile. She was the only child of strict Catholic parents.
So she was a rebel.
I've added a little bit here where I've put lots to say.
I love when you do that because I just fully prepare myself that Winnie's got lots to say. Sit down. Let me be sat. Winnie's got lots to say today.
Her father was a medical doctor. I think her mother stayed at home. She was able to. Jean O'Hara received a good education. And this is where I put in parentheses lots to say. What's that got to do with it? What has that got to do with anything? She had a good education, therefore she should not have turned to prostitution.
Right.
Shit happens. People get manipulated. She had a good education. She should have known better. No, because the next thing goes on to saying she was 17 and she was at a party where she saw a friend who had received expensive jewelry as a gift, and that girl's boyfriend was a pimp. So she was 17 and saw sparkly things and said, let me have that, without thinking of the seriousness of it.
Correct.
And he introduced O'Hara to prostitution so she could also sport the same expensive jewelry. She was just a kid that saw sparkly things.
Once again, we're here with a 17-year-old girl wondering the mental state, right? The mental immaturity of a 17-year-old girl. You're easy to manipulate somebody at that age. And a lot of these men saw that. And
I do think it's another case of her being manipulated.
Yeah.
And probably sex trafficked.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
The best way I can look at it. Initially, she worked out of Chicago, but began making her way around the mainland USA. She was arrested a bunch of times between 34 and 38 because, of course, prostitution was illegal. She may have been operating not out of a brothel, but on the street and approaching people for services.
Very unethical.
A very unethical way, yeah. She changed her name a few times too. In June of 34, she was arrested under the name Jean Burke. She was banned from a bunch of places too. She was banned from LaSalle County, Illinois, and then later banned from Monterey County in California, and was given a suspended 90-day prison sentence. What does that mean? What does a suspended sentence mean? Like, you're given the sentence, but you don't have to do it? What does that actually? I wrote it and I'm like, I'll look this up later. And I never did. That's why I'm asking you. You should know this. You would think.
I would think. So it is an executed prison sentence.
Okay.
It's a judicial punishment where the judge hands down a jail term. but he delays or pauses its execution. So instead of going to jail immediately, the convicted individual remains in the community under strict probationary conditions.
Oh.
So you're going to
Okay.
jail. So let's
You're
say
told you're going to jail, essentially.
you're told you're going to jail. So let's say hypothetically, you're told you're going to jail.
Okay.
And, you know, maybe you've committed a white collar crime. So you're not on the watch for a murder or anything like that.
Right.
You are told you're going to jail and you plead with your lawyer, like, you know, hey, okay, I know I'm going to jail, but my daughter's getting married in 3 weeks. They'll suspend
Oh.
it and say, if, you know, you're not a
Do it
hot,
later.
listen, we'll suspend your sentence until after the wedding. 2 days after the wedding, you have to report to X, Y, and Z and begin your
Oh,
sentence.
God.
Yeah,
That's finicky.
it's finicky. It is.
Okay.
Yes. So
She's
there you
given
go.
a suspended sentence, a suspended 90-day prison sentence. That doesn't
So
seem
3
worth it,
months.
to be
3 months in
honest.
prison.
Yeah. Yeah. And when she was, quote, recruited to go work in Honolulu, she was working at a high-class brothel in San Francisco. Again, recruited is a nice word to use.
Right.
Yep. She never said it was easy money. She made lots of money to the
But it
point
was
where
never,
she could buy property, and she bought a really nice Lincoln Zephyr, which is quite nice for her. So it was a brutal job. There's some quotes from her in Our Mother's War.
Yeah, she's mentioned
Actually.
quite a bit in Emily
She
Yellen's
is.
book, Our Mother's War.
The prostitute pays in many ways. First, she has to pay with her self-respect. She must harden herself against the disrespect, abuse, vulgar insults, and disgusting demands of her clientele, some of whom are on level with the lowest form of animal life. The fine ones who display kindness and courtesy cannot make up for the sexually perverted and intoxicated. Finally, the prostitute pays with broken health and body. The ones that waxed old and fat in the trade during the pre-war days were always shoved out, and younger girls stepped in to take their place. Nowadays, the rush business has put even these old ones back in circulation again. And she said that Honolulu was a veritable gold mine for prostitutes and madams. But by her description, it was a brutal job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've known many who tried to quit, but they eventually came back. Their general reaction is one of discouragement. They find that the public gives little help to the efforts of a prostitute who wants to return to a normal, decent, useful living. No jobs, they're told, are available for such people. The police follow them suspiciously and interfere with their employment. Then they are driven back to the only place where they seem welcome, a sporting house. They usually lack the strength to make a second attempt to quit. And she described some madams in Honolulu to be the most hard-hearted women I've ever met in my years of experience. They're greedy, they're money hungry, and they drive their girls to their very breaking point. O'Hara herself became a madame of a brothel.
She said all that, yet she created the Bullpen.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? How are we? Maybe this was years after everything, and
Could be. It could be years later. Yeah.
She reconsidered a lot of things.
It could be years later. Yes.
Yeah, because she did live until the 70s, I believe.
Wow.
She married a guy in Hawaii, and this was during her time in the brothels as a madam. She opened her own brothel without approval. She flouted the rules by buying property and marrying a local man, but she didn't live with him. She found a loophole, I guess. And you watched a movie about her, right? Based upon her?
I did watch a movie based on her, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, obviously it's Hollywood, right? So they're painting it and trussing it up and putting beautiful music behind it.
They're making it
And
sparkly,
there's
and
beautiful
it's a love
costumes
story.
and it's a love story. I watched The Revolt of Mamie Stover, where Jane Russell is essentially Jean O'Hara. So it stars Jane Russell and Richard Egan.
Gotcha.
And it starts set in pre-Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Actually, it begins on a steamer boat where Richard Egan's character is traveling to, he's in the army, but obviously Pearl Harbor hasn't happened yet. So he's in the reserves and he's a fiction writer.
I see.
And
Okay.
she has just been ousted from San Francisco.
Okay.
So the police have asked this ship to take her to Hawaii.
Oh.
And she meets Richard Egan's character, Jimmy, on the boat.
Okay.
And he begins kind of telling her, oh, I'm a fiction writer, I'm in this and that. He goes, oh, I could write a story about your life. And she goes, oh, and he kind of turns her life into this Cinderella type fiction story. And they fall in love on the boat. And as they begin to depart, he gives her $100. He loans her $100, thinking he'll never see
Oh.
it again, right?
Right.
She's got stars in her eyes for him. They get off the
Mm-hmm.
boat. He's got a girlfriend or
Because of
something or other.
course.
Because of course, she begins work at a brothel in Hawaii, and he sees her advertised on one of the
Okay.
posters on Hotel
Oh,
Street.
Jesus.
And now she's got this persona. She's Flamin' Mamie. She's dyed her hair red.
Okay.
She's the popular girl. Men are buying tickets in droves for her. He
She's
buys
the it girl with
$100
the...
worth of tickets
just
to sit and talk to her. Just to sit and talk to her.
God.
She begins sneaking out of the brothel. She begins using him to help her invest her money. And surprise, she's buying real estate. And it goes through, you see the attack on Pearl Harbor. He joins the army. He's called up for service.
Right.
They begin falling in love. She's making pleas to the madam, right? And the madam is like, well, you're so popular. She goes, well, I don't care. I quit. I love
Can't
him.
let you go.
Right? I'm quitting. I love
Yeah.
him. And she's prepared to quit. She's prepared to live on the mainland or live in this big, beautiful house that he's got, even though when they go out to restaurants, people look at her sideways. So, people stare at her because she's not supposed to be there. And the madam basically reels her back in. You're too popular.
Wow.
I can't afford to lose you. You're too good. You're too good. You're too
Yeah.
good. What if I give you more money? What if I only take $1? What if I give you 50%? What if I give you 60%? Eventually it ends up with, I think, Mamie and the madam. The last you hear of it is that they're equal share partners in the girls. Equal shares in the brothel. And she's been writing to Jimmy, now who's at war, and making it seem like she's living in the house, that she's not living at the brothel. The madam has been mailing the letters for her from an outside location.
Oh my God.
And one of the men in his unit gets a pinup poster of Flamin' Mamie.
No.
And
oh God.
He gets injured and he gets leave back on the mainland. And he confronts her, and she ends up alone at the end of it.
Oh, God.
And then she's so alone that she leaves Hawaii, goes back to San Francisco. The police meet her at the port and tell her she's still no longer welcome in San Francisco. But she says she's leaving to go back to, I think it's Mississippi or Missouri, wherever she actually came from.
Wow.
And she's just passing through. But it is a very glamorized Hollywood depiction of Jean O'Hara.
I'm not surprised.
And I mean, I enjoyed the movie, and I was like rooting for her. I was like, yes, she's gonna leave the life. She's gonna, yes.
Yeah.
No.
So close, but so far.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, because the money.
I need to watch it. The money's too good.
The money was too good, right? How could you turn down that kind of money? The money was too good.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, I got so upset at the end. I was like, I can't believe she caved. I can't believe she caved for the money.
If anyone wants to watch it, it is free on YouTube.
It is. It's free on YouTube. That's where I watched it.
I found it pretty quickly. I'm surprised.
It was I cast it to my TV in the living room, and it was very good. I mean, it's like an hour and a half, but it was good. And it's interesting that we were talking about how the MPs protected these women, right? So there's a bit in the movie where he takes her out to this really high class, high end restaurant where a lot of other soldiers take their girlfriends or wives. And the the bouncer or the muscle for the brothel
Right.
follows her there and finds her. And Richard Egan's character basically knocks him out. And the muscle for the brothel basically tries to get the MPs to arrest Richard Egan and to
Right.
take Mamie away. And the
Mm-hmm.
MPs basically take him outside and talk.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm back with the air quotes, guys. Take him
You have to
outside and
be.
they talk. And the MPs
Have to
basically
be.
protected Mamie.
Yeah, I mean,
And at that point,
part was
at
really
that
crazy.
point, the madam, he goes back to the madam, the muscle guy, he's really just a skinny little nothing.
Yeah.
The muscle guy goes back to the madam and is like, you should let her go. She was out, fire her, blah, blah, blah. And the madam knows she's got money in Mamie, right? Like Mamie's my moneymaker.
Right. Yeah.
So she gets rid of him instead. I was like, good. But then I was like, that as I'm watching it, I'm like, no. I'm like, this is not going to be the happily ever after love story I wanted it to be, but
at least that part was accurate.
Very entertaining.
Yeah.
But it was very, as we were doing the research, I'm like, that's why the MPs came right to her aid, because
they were protecting
her.
All of the women.
All those women, exactly.
This one has been fascinating. Like, since we read about it in Our Mother's War, I've been really keen to talk about it.
I was very surprised, but also very pleased to see that Hollywood took the initiative to make a movie about it as well. Yes. Even though they put a bit of a glamorous spin on it.
They put like a little sparkle screen on it.
They gave it a little bit of a bath, right? And cleaned it up. They gave it a bit of a makeover. They had to.
It wouldn't
it's
have been
still
allowed
very, it's still very, I don't want to say, that's not surprising, but also pleasant to see that it was acknowledged. Like, this happened.
Yeah.
Let's acknowledge it.
I agree.
Let's put a bit of a spotlight on it.
I really agree with that. I think we've said this to each other, where we say that doing stories like this sort of sets us apart, and this gives people more things to learn and more information to start their search with.
There's so
a lot of people
many,
don't talk about this.
people ask me all the time of women in World War II, like, how much is out there?
It's endless.
And I'm like, you would be so surprised at what's out there. I think that's something that I find with a lot of the research we do for these women. And once again, anybody who says to me, how much is there out there on women in World War II? Like, oh, Rosie the Riveters? Rosie the Riveters?
So much.
Listen. And I tell them all the time, I go, listen to me, there are 350,000 women, and not all of them are Rosies. Which means there are 350,000 stories.
Yeah. To be told.
Think about that. 350,000 individual stories to be told. And
that doesn't even cover those that didn't serve in any form of military operation.
Right. And it's not counting like women who did their job on the home front, who maybe sold war bonds or, worked at a USO club.
And women that did unsavory jobs.
Correct. Like these women are not counted in that 350,000.
Exactly.
But this was their way of kind of participating in the war effort the best that they could. The best that they could.
That's a nice way to end it, I think, is that they were also doing their part. Was it unsavory? Yes.
They were
looked down upon.
Were they morale boosters for some of these men? Absolutely. And did they do it in a way that kept themselves and the men sexually clean and safe? Yes, they did. Not counted in the 350,000. However, they did do their part for their country in one way or another. And
I think that's a really sweet way to leave it.
Yeah.
I like that. Well, thank you everyone again for listening.
Thank you for joining us. I had a great time recording this one. This was a heavy one, but I enjoyed it very much.
No, me too. And we'll see you next time.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.